people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Newly crowned undisputed super featherweight champion Alicia Baumgartner took to social media to react to the news. Katie Taylor has officially called out Chantel Cameron, and it's looking like, for all intents and purposes, it will be Chantel she shares the ring with in May, not Alicia. To that, Alicia stated, "Listen, I thought it was about legacy. Word on the street is Katie wants the easiest path to two-weight undisputed she can get. She wants out before she gets knocked out. We've seen what punchers do to her. She knows what it is."
Now, I'm a big fan of both fighters, so it's not about choosing sides.
I can't agree with Alicia's contention that moving up in weight to take on a naturally bigger and younger fighter, a stronger fighter, in Chantel Cameron is the quote-unquote easiest path.
It's not.
Moreover, Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron, they do have a bit more history than, say, Katie Taylor and Alicia Baumgartner. Chantel Cameron, she's wanted this fight for a while, a long while.
We're talking years.
Several instances where Chantel Cameron herself felt that the fight would never happen, the fight would never take place. Several instances where I spoke to Chantel here on the channel, and she communicated as much.
You're skeptical.
The fighters round the perimeter of Katie Taylor. Alicia Baumgartner, 1 division south at 130. Chantel Cameron, 1 division north at 140.
Hard to say that one is easier than the other, so much as one is different.
Each fighter poses a different set of challenges for Katie Taylor. In Alicia Baumgartner, she'd be facing an athletic, strong...
Fast.
Alicia's fast, though not naturally bigger than Katie Taylor. Certainly not bigger than Chantel Cameron, who campaigns 2 divisions north of Alicia, up there at super lightweight. She is, in fact, a naturally bigger woman than the both of them.
It's not an easy out. I mean, I've already started seeing people picking Chantel Cameron to upset the apple cart for Katie Taylor.
I've seen them. That she may be biting off more than she can chew with this one.
England versus Ireland. That makes for a big fight.
For what it's worth, I think either fight would be a big fight. Taylor versus Baumgartner or Taylor versus Cameron, though all the same. They're both dangerous fights.
I'm okay either way, though. As you can imagine, Alicia Baumgartner, she did have a heart set on getting that fight. Naturally, she's disappointed. She's not happy about it. But if you're Katie Taylor, you can't please everybody.
Jessica McCaskill's wanted a rematch for the longest time. Chantel Cameron, she spent years calling out Katie Taylor. And Alicia Baumgartner, she wanted a piece of the pie as well.
Katie can only fight one fighter at a time.
It's not going to be Alicia, so the question then is, who's Alicia going to fight in her next fight?
Most would immediately point to a Michaela Mayer rematch, but Michaela's spoken for. She's supposed to be fighting Christina Linardatu in April.
She's out of the running. She's out of the picture for now. Alicia Baumgartner, being the super featherweight division's newly crowned undisputed champion, she has all of the alphabet titles.
We know that by way of the WBA, former champion Hyun-Mi Choi has been labeled a champion in recess, and she can be fast-tracked to a title shot with Alicia whenever she wants it. The question is, does she want it?
You guys know how I feel about it. I don't think Hyun-Mi Choi wants that fight. I think she's waiting for Alicia to vacate those titles, move up in weight so she can pick one up on the bounce. A vacant title on the rebound. But so long as Alicia is campaigning as a super featherweight, and so long as she's reigning as that division's undisputed champion, it's an option.
Hyun-Mi Choi is.
If Hyun-Mi Choi doesn't want the shot by way of the WBA, Germany's own Ramona Grave, that unbeaten up-and-comer.
She's next in the rotation.
By way of the WBA, she is. Now, by way of the WBC, interestingly enough, by way of both the WBC, the WBO, and the IBF. Former WBC lightweight champion of Belgium,
Delphine Passoon. She's ranked number 1 with all of them.
With the WBC, the WBO, and the IBF. She is the number 1 contender across the board with those alphabet organizations. And it seems to me that so long as Alicia is hanging on to those belts, it's only a matter of time before a fight between them gets ordered.
That's a great fucking fight.
A dangerous one, though, for the newly crowned undisputed super featherweight champion. You know what Delphine Persoon's all about. You know she's got an engine, you know she can take a punch, and she can give one.
She's got one gear.
Just one gear, and that's go.
But the fight hasn't been ordered yet, so perhaps there's still enough time for Alicia Baumgartner to fight someone else. Maybe take a voluntary.
Heather Hardy was in action not that long ago in the tri-state area. New York City racked up another win. Perhaps she can drop down 5 pounds from 135 down to 130 for a shot at all the marbles, a shot at all the belts opposite the ring Alicia Baumgartner.
Maybe.
She said she's giving it another go. She's going to go on another world title run.
I vaguely recall hearing something about Alicia Baumgartner maybe having a homecoming fight.
Over there in Detroit. I mean, if the sanctioning bodies haven't yet ordered a fight between Alicia and Delphine or Alicia and Ramona Grafe,
She can always give Heather Hardy a shot as a voluntary.
Alicia Baumgartner, who last saw action last month opposite the ring El Mechaled.
More recently in attendance at the premiere of Creed 3, the feature film, the major motion picture.
Rubbing elbows with the A-listers. I don't think that Matchroom should wait too long to get Alicia back out there. They've got to keep the momentum going.
Keep her fighting.
She really put on a show opposite the ring El Mechaled. That was a fan-friendly fight, couple of knockdowns.
Very entertaining.
Alicia always is. Ideally, they'd get her out sometime soon, sometime just before summer starts or during the summer months, then one more time towards the tail end of the year.
The more we get to see Alicia, the better.
We'll see what direction they decide to go in. Now that Alicia's not in the running for the Katie Taylor fight anymore, there's more work needs doing. In men's 136-pound news, Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, according to Showtime Sports president Stefan Espinoza.
They're taking a unique approach to promoting this quote-unquote super fight.
A unique approach in order to cater to younger audiences than your conventional fight fan. After months of speculation, fight negotiations between Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis look to have hit a brick wall with no new positive updates, and the fight is seemingly looking elsewhere for their next bout. A much too similar fate for boxing in recent years. Last November, though, fight fans finally got an announcement with Tank Davis and Garcia, alongside network executives Stefan Espinoza and Joe Markowski, announcing on social media that they had agreed on terms to meet in Las Vegas
This upcoming April.
with the rumored date being April 15th, which has since changed to April 22nd.
They pushed it back.
Kinda had to, in order to have enough time to promote the show, yet how they intend to promote the show is getting some attention. They don't plan a multi-city press tour per se, you know, what you would expect for a super fight.
Just the other day, New York Fights published an article by Marquise Johns questioning as to whether or not this even is a super fight.
Given how they intend to promote it, it's a valid question. No official poster or details, and warm-up fights for both did hinder excitement, and rightfully so, as months later, contracts still hadn't been signed, and there were obvious issues to resolve that had seen light in the public. Last month, an announcement was finally made official for the 136-pound pay-per-view catchweight clash on April 22nd, available on Showtime and DAZN pay-per-view jointly. With a fight as big as this, a huge promotion that will capture the imagination of boxing fans around the world is expected, and Espinoza, the president of Showtime Sports, explained to Fight Hub TV how all parties involved in the fight expect to deliver that in a unique way that better appeals to the boxers' respective fan bases.
Gervonta Davis has been fighting on Showtime for as long as I can remember. 5 separate box office appearances, 5 separate pay-per-view fights.
Not a single one among them cracked 300,000 buys. This one, even more so, is going to be a social media promotion, especially with those two who have among the top 2 social media followings in the sport. Traditionally, we would say multi-city press tour. You want to generate all this publicity in all these different areas. We don't have to do a multi-city press tour to create content. Those guys are experts at creating content.
Perhaps Ryan Garcia a little more than Gervonta Davis. What content does Gervonta create?
Most attention he gets outside of the ring is his run-ins with the law, but as far as content and creating it, what content does he make?
So what are you talking about? YouTube, TikTok, Facebook?
Given the age and demographics of their fan bases, this will be the first social media first boxing promotion.
It's a novel idea for what's supposed to be a super fight.
We'll see how super it is once the numbers are in, if it even happens. These comments from Stefan Espinoza are coming to us at a time when there are noticeable budget cuts to Showtime's boxing budget.
Talks of belt tightening by way of Showtime's parent company Paramount.
What seems to indicate Showtime being absorbed into Paramount as content for them. That is, what content on Showtime actually moves the needle.
When you say you plan on promoting this super fight, quote unquote, by way of social media, as opposed to a traditional multi-city press tour, you know what I hear?
You know what I see? Budget cuts.
You've never made a proposition like this before, and Gervonta Davis himself, he's been on pay-per-view 5 times. So why all of a sudden are you focusing on social media?
Is it because you don't have it in the budget to do a multi-city press tour the way you could have way back when things were better?
It would be you and your whoever's above you to advocate, for boxing. The only thing I have a worry as a fan is there was a thing in the report that said that there could reshift resources with underperforming properties. And, if you take a look at, viewing figures and they see that like, hey, we do a documentary that gets this much and these live events cost this much. We kind of saw that with HBO where, they say like, hey, we're spending so much on these boxing events and we could do an Andre the Giant documentary that gets, tenfold of that, and it kind of makes you wonder at times.
Yeah, I think, I'm glad you brought that up because it's another, I think, really misconception or really overly simplistic generalization. People rely on Nielsen ratings, which are one tip of the iceberg. That's one metric of many that we use. We use streaming, streaming viewership, which is not reported by Nielsen for the most part. We use, subscriber additions, new signups. We use, things which measure retention. And again, in looking even at viewership, it's not apples to apples. If you say, okay, we've got Billions of the Shy, which, people will watch, for months or even years, because they can catch up and stream it. Whereas sports is, live programming, the metrics are not the same. So, yes, look, part of this is, when he's talking, when they're talking about, low viewership is a problem. It is. I mean, there's not a network in the business that is going to continue committing to something that has low viewership. But whether, in fact, low viewership, what the metrics are for making that decision are something that's far more complex than just looking at the Nielsen ratings and saying 250,000 people watch this.
Just the other day, Marquise Johns at New York Fights questioned as to whether or not this is a bona fide super fight. This fight with Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis. And more recently, Marcos Villegas, he asked
Stephen Espinoza outright.
what is the future of boxing on the Showtime platform, given everything that's going on with their parent company? You often hear it said in some circles, very small ones, that the subjects we cover here on this channel are narratives, false narratives, agenda-driven. But you tell me, if that's true, why is Marcos Villegas asking about it?
Do you think I'm pulling these stories out of my ass? You know what I'm doing? I'm connecting the dots.
If you're too stupid to see the forest for the trees or the hornets for the bees, that's a you problem.
This is supposed to be a super fight.
And your method of promoting it is online content, not a multi-city press tour?
Sounds like budget cuts are the culprit to me. I mean, don't forget who's at the helm of promotion for this fight. It's not Golden Boy Promotions.
And it's not the DAZN platform either, in spite of them helping to distribute the pay-per-view. The ones in charge here seem to be Showtime. Showtime who are experiencing what?
Budget cuts. Belt tightening.
You think it's a coincidence that instead of doing a multi-city press tour, they plan on promoting this thing primarily online
to teens and tweens.
Based on Ryan and Gervonta's social media following, we have yet to see if all of those followers that Ryan's got on Instagram translate into buyers.
Customers who purchase pay-per-views because he himself has never been on pay-per-view before.
The numbers the fight brings in, that's what'll determine whether or not this is a super fight. That'll tell you what it is and what it ain't.
Stephen seems to be setting the bar lower and lower,
stating that it sort of feels like 800,000 is the new million, in reference to what a box office fight might do on pay-per-view.
In lieu of declining viewership and lower box office numbers, he is in fact setting the bar lower and lower with a comment like that.
Is it the new million because you're greatly struggling to come anywhere near a million pay-per-view buys with any of the box office fights you've already put on and intend to put on?
Is that why?
It sort of feels like 800 is the new million. If we look at it, Canelo versus Plant did about 800,000. Wilder versus Fury, 2 and 3, did a little less than that, but in the same neighborhood. and those have been the biggest ones in recent pay-per-views. That sort of feels like it's not necessarily the ceiling, but the most we have done as a sport lately. I'd be thrilled with those numbers, and I know there are people throwing around other numbers as well.
The most we've seen in recent memory is a little over 1 million pay-per-view buys for Canelo versus Golovkin 3.
Which was officially confirmed by the pay-per-view's distributor themselves, DAZN. They confirmed the pay-per-view brought in just a little over 1 million pay-per-view buys.
It's not via some boxing scribe with a source, some rumor being spun on the rumor mill. DAZN themselves confirmed it in their official press release.
On their official website. It doesn't get more official than that. Hearing it from the horse's mouth. Stefan continued.
But what does make me optimistic and hopeful that we could have a breakout performance is when you talk about the handful of fighters in the sport
Who have the profile and the fan base outside of our usual hardcore fans. Tank and Ryan are definitely within that small category.
Are they?
Gervonta Davis has never come close to cracking 500,000 pay-per-view buys, let alone anywhere near 1 million. And Ryan's never been on pay-per-view before. He's got a large social media following, but social media is free.
Pay-per-views are not.
Has yet to be determined as to whether or not Ryan Garcia can turn all of those Instagram and TikTok followers he has into paying customers. This will tell the story.
Because this is the biggest fight of his career.
For God's sake, they plan on promoting it primarily on social media. The bar is set lower and lower for how a pay-per-view performs due to several outlying factors. Piracy, illegal streams being one among them, but another is oversaturation of the market.
Too many pay-per-views happening too close together.
Asking the boxing fans to go in their wallets one too many times, several times a month, several times a year, in sequence, case in point. Before we see Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis on pay-per-view, there's another pay-per-view happening right before that involving David Benavidez and Caleb Plant.
I'm sorry, it's a decent little fight, but it shouldn't be a pay-per-view. It shouldn't.
We got Dimitri Bivol versus Zerto Ramirez, a battle of the unbeatens as part of our regular DAZN subscription. So why should we have to pay $80 to see these two?
I didn't have to pay $80 to see the man that beat Canelo Alvarez beat Zerto Ramirez, so why should I have to pay $80 to see the man that lost to Canelo Alvarez?
That man being Caleb Plant opposite the ring, David Benavidez. David's never been on pay-per-view.
Why does this fight cost so much more than that one?
Oversaturation of the market has its role to play in declining pay-per-view buys. There's too many pay-per-views in the market right now, one after the other. And that's just by way of one outfit. If you tack on whatever Top Rank means to do towards that same month,
or around it,
and DAZN as well, if they add pay-per-views, if they add box office fights to their existing schedule,
thankfully they haven't.
Piracy in tandem with oversaturation of the market has led to lower and lower pay-per-view buys.
There's too many.
Can't keep constantly asking the fight fans to go into their wallet back to back.
Month to month.
Better still, this is not the kind of talk you expect to hear ahead of what's supposed to be a quote-unquote super fight.
Is Stefan expecting that this thing don't crack 1 million pay-per-view buys?
Sounds like it.